The Democrats, leftists, communists, whatever you want to call them, they hate you. And we're going to tell you why and what to do about it. All this on Freedom First with Hayden Smith. Before we get going, I'd first like to open us up in some prayer because Jesus Christ is the center of all wisdom. Dear Lord, we thank you for this evening that we're able to be here and talk about the afflictions of our nation. We pray that you give us discernment and wisdom and lead us with compassion and love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So joining us here in studio today, we have Ms. Olivia Notch, and we have in the studio Mr. Titus Kvien. So as the intro of this video implied, we were talking about why the people on the left seem to be so filled with hate and animosity for their fellow man. So first off, the Democrats, they hate you. They hate us. They hate themselves, and they hate America. So let's start with the first one. They hate you. They hate you, the person listening, the normal, everyday guy who just wants to live his life, or woman. They hate you. Hate you a lot. Second, they hate us. And this is the more broader implication. Who are we? We're the normal people, the normal Americans who want to live normal lives. We want things like low taxes, safe streets, go to church, raise our kids, visit our friends and family. We want to generally conserve our society. We're not really that overtly political. We don't desire to be. But they hate us so much. And to add some evidence and context to this as far as conservative, normal, everyday people, Mr. Titus, could you play video 2 for us?
Yes, sir. It's got to load, of course.
About this before, there's different classifications of pathetic, right? There's Trump supporter, that's very pathetic. There's black Trump supporter, that's pathetic. There's Latino Trump supporter, that's a different classification of brain dead troglodyte pathetic. But to be a Latino ICE agent, which is, it's funny because I'm frankly certain about like half of ICE agents are black and Latino. To be a minority and an ICE agent, it's like you shouldn't have rights ever again. I'm not even kidding. Like, your family should be taken away from you. You shouldn't have rights, and you should be sent to a concentration camp. Oh, wait. That's what you're already doing to regular Latinos. My bad. What I meant to say was you're a pathetic excuse and a waste of a man. That's what any and all minorities who are in ICE, like, bro, you're actually a waste of oxygen, and you would be better off in a gulag enslaved. That's what I believe. I've talked about that.
Yep. Wow. The compassionate, loving left. I don't know if you guys noticed, but just the part where we hate ICE agents, but like anyone who's not who is a minority, we hate you the absolute most if you're an ICE agent, because you know they would say that if you're a minority, you belong to them. You're part of their group. If you don't adhere to their beliefs, you're a turncoat. You're a backstabber, and this is where you see people using racial slurs to describe black and minority conservatives. Another video I would like for us to look at, video 4. Titus.
Clear. We are well past ICE at this point. It is now fight ICE.
Oh, well, she was trying to run him over. It's self-defense. I wish she was, and I wish she did. And guess what? If she did and he died, I would have celebrated, because ICE aren't people. They're demons in human form.
Yeah, just to be entirely clear here, just to not split any hairs, if you support ICE, you are just as bad as ICE. You're a cancer on humanity that should be excised. That is to say, I want you dead.
The only true way to make America great again is to kill a Nazi. So good luck, Godspeed.
I have an idea. A no kings protest, but we have weapons and we use them.
Violence against the state. The answer is violence against the state. Violence has always been the answer. If you are not loudly advocating for the death and imprisonment of almost everyone in this administration and everyone that has participated in these ICE operations, then you're a fucking collaborator.
Remember, if ICE tries to police your polling station, mark your ballot in their blood. Thank you.
If they try to break into your home without a warrant, blow their heads off.
I don't want impeachment. I don't want them to serve time. I want them taken into the city town square.
It's a lot of squealing.
From their ankles.
Very compassionate, kind, loving people.
That person can vote.
I just want to know when we light the torches and get the pitchforks, because we just need to burn this down and start the over. So, you with me? Let's roll.
So, like, if you just executed one of these Nazis in broad daylight, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. 40 people were there. You didn't execute him. He was threatening your life. Jury of your peers, get out of here.
Because ICE has a violent track record of kidnappings and what now looks like murder, right? So when we see them...
All right, Titus, I think we've had enough of that.
We get the idea.
We get the idea. So I know specifically a lot of those were relating to ICE, but as you could hear, a lot of the individuals were saying they hate ICE, want them dead, and anyone who supports them, which is basically every person who voted for Donald Trump, which is about 80 million people, half the country, supports ICE and supports Donald Trump over those measures, voted for him to, enable ICE to do these mass deportations. And they want everyone, us, the normal people, dead for it. They want to kill us. Now, you might think that we just found a montage video of just random individuals just hating on conservative people, but it's not just randos. It's actually quite mainstream. And I'd like you to see these videos. Titus, could you play video 5 and then 6?
Here's 5.
Understanding is that the property owners who have properties there choose just not to rent it at all.
Yeah, kill them. Kill those motherfuckers. Murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their red capitalist bloods, dude.
So the first video, that's Hassan Piker talking about
the compassionate Hassan Piker.
He's a communist guy. He's talking about killing capitalists. He's not some random person. He has 1.7 million Instagram followers. Or video 6.
Need conservatives to be afraid of getting killed when they go to events so that they look to their leadership to turn down the temperature. The issue is right now, they don't feel like there's any fear.
Why does he mock his widow?
Because she's being used as a political weapon right now.
Her husband just got murdered.
On email. Yeah, and she's using it to drive up recruitment for
and
a
you can't even
movement.
condemn the murder. Why can't you condemn the murder of Charlie Kirk?
Because it wasn't my side that caused it. It should
Yes,
be the
it
one
was.
that is driving up
It
the
actually
rhetoric.
was your side that caused it. What's incredible is you don't have the basic humanity to condemn it. You'd rather taunt his widow. I find that sickening.
Yeah.
Brutal.
So that's Destiny, famous online debater, talking to Pierce Morgan about the Charlie Kirk assassination and his point. And he's done this various times. He was the one who said he wasn't upset that the gentleman in Butler, Pennsylvania, got shot during the Trump assassination attempt. He said he was completely okay with it, or he wasn't sorry about it.
Corey Compertor, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That one.
But again, this gentleman, famous leftist, has over 300,000 Instagram followers. He's not a nobody. He's all over the internet debating and arguing for the left. This is a top-down desire to kill and hate all the normal people. Because generally speaking, the average person is far more conservative than they might think. If you just want to live a normal life, not have the government that much in your life, generally safe streets, generally good schools, roads to be built, you just don't want politics to be that big of a part of your life, then you're a normal person. You should be voting red. You are a conservative by most standards. They want those people dead. And you actually see this in books like this one. This is the Communist Manifesto. It is a book of ideologies that preach nothing but violence. Its express goal is to cause nothing but revolutions where the proletarians, the working class, rise up and kill or take and submit everyone else. And it basically says that anyone who's not poor is the enemy. Anyone who's not broke is the enemy. So that's why they want to kill normal people. We are the enemy. So it's not just the weirdos, it is everyone. So they hate you, they hate all of us, and sadly, they hate themselves. They hate who God has made them to be. They hate their bodies. They hate their humanity. That's why they're all so emotional and unstable. They're in direct conflict with who they meant to be. That's why they wear weird clothes, dye their hair, try to mess with their identities. They hurt themselves, self-mutilation, gender transitions. It's all a self-hatred of themselves. They want to be God. They want to be different than who God made them to be.
Well, and like you said, it's not the exception. This is the rule. You don't have to go digging for clips like these. Like, this is every single day. Prominent left talking people, talking heads, are saying this daily.
And if they're not saying it, they are also not calling it out on their side. That's something that I saw a lot during, the aftermath of the whole Charlie Kirk situation, is all of these left-wing politicians came out and they condemned what happened. And I had to scoff at it, because to me, I'm like, you were complicit in this, because as you watched your colleagues and those who vote for you, your constituents, say horrible things about Charlie Kirk and conservatives, you've never once stuck up for them. You've never once said it's not true. And then now that, this is blown up into an insane situation, now you're coming out and you're condemning it, but you weren't willing to do that the whole time. And so, yeah, but that's my thing, is I think a lot of people think this way, but are smart enough not to say it, because I look at all these people who are talking like this on the internet, and the only conclusion I can come to is, obviously they are morally compromised in a way that I could never understand, and they're also not very smart. But the more sinister thing is that there are many, many people who think this way but are smart enough not to say it. And that to me is a little bit scarier, to be quite honest.
Well, it's very even I have run into this hatred of conservatives or normal people just in my own life. I do a lot of political stuff on campuses, and I've gone to a Democratic Socialist meeting undercover at college. I've been there, half a dozen times or so. And I've been there undercover. They don't know who I am, and they don't know I'm conservative, and just casually joking that Republicans, conservatives need to be put in concentration camps or killed. Just casually making fun of us and like, haha, these people are so awful, we should kill them. And I'm like, whoa. And I don't say anything because I don't want to be ousted, but I'm like genuinely fearful for my life sometimes when I'm around them, because I'm like, if these guys ever knew who I was, I don't know what they would do to me. And I have the recordings of it because I recorded those meetings, because they're crazy. Those people are hilariously funny. I mean, it's like sad, pathetic funny, but it's still kind of humorous in some instances. But yeah, generally speaking, I would say they hate themselves. And that's why they do such weird things to them, to their bodies, to their soul. It's in a direct conflict with God. And then another thing is they hate America, what we stand for. They hate America in its entirety, in its existence. They would rather us not exist, or they don't want us to prosper. They're actively rooting for bad things to happen. And you see this especially when Donald Trump has been president, where just anything to make him look bad is permissible. They hate that our society is orientated around the truth of Jesus Christ and our individual relationships with him. They hate that they want to drive church out of everything. They want to drive God out of everything, make everything extremely secular. They hate nuclear families. Again, in this book, abolish the nuclear family. They hate it. They want families to be separated. That's why all their policies end in mass divorce and separated families. The welfare states started by Lyndon B. Johnson and FDR. All these things to split up families and try to indoctrinate kids. They hate property rights. That's why they're constantly trying to raise your taxes, make it more difficult to buy land, to build, to do anything. Just make it more difficult. Natural rights, your individualism, our sovereignty as a nation. They flood illegal immigrants into the border, flood non-Americans, have them decide what our nation does. not allow us to decide what we want to do. They don't want us to be a sovereign nation. They don't want us to prosper.
And the reason, like, for me, they hate America specifically because they won't advocate for any of these policies anywhere else. They're totally okay with the idea that every other country has borders, every other country has a right to enforce their laws, to create order, all of that sort of stuff. They don't seem to have an issue with it, except for when it comes to America. And I have to think that that is something specific to our nation. It is something specific about our identity as a nation that they hate. It's not just, oh, we happen to live here and we really don't like it, and we don't like the big orange guy who's in charge, and we just hate it so much. No, there's something about the core identity of America, the fact that we are rugged individuals, the fact that we are a Christian nation, we are a nation that is governed, you know, by the people, for the people, and we don't want to give like insane amounts of power to the government. And so when you see these like officials who will praise nations, like they'll praise Scandinavian nations, Denmark, Sweden, they'll think that they're amazing, all of these more progressive nations, and then all of these nations do what we are trying to do, which is enforce, you know, borders, make sure that only citizens vote, all of that stuff. And I don't know. And so for me, I'm always like, what is it about America that they hate so very much? And I mean, I think it's a couple of things that you said, a couple of things that I said, but there's something specific there that they can't stand.
Well, at large, I would say they hate Western civilization in its entirety. And that's just their viewpoint of a lot of them. It's just the way they outlook on life, where they have this idea like personal sovereignty, republic government, the one that we have are bad. We shouldn't have them. We should just have, at the more elite level, we should just have people in charge who are the good people who will decide everything, and then everyone else can live in harmony and a utopia with each other without understanding that everywhere else that's ever been tried, it just ends in a mass tyranny. And still to this day, it just ends in mass tyranny. And I'm not saying that the way republics work is perfect in every instance. Obviously, mistakes happen, but it's the one form of government least susceptible to mass oppression of its people. But getting back to some of the things that the left hates, again, we're talking about America. They hate our prosperity so much. And I think a lot of that is specifically with Donald Trump, hating Donald Trump so much. They want him to fail so badly. They want him, for political means, to lose no matter what. And this is where I'll be on Instagram and I'll see the Democrat page posting about Iran. And just every post from them is a negative comment. And the worst part is if you go into the comment sections, it's just dozens and dozens of comments, basically just saying like, yep, America's going to lose, or yep, I hope America learns their lesson and the Iranians thrash them. And I would love to think that all of those are just Iranian bot posts, but I know that they're not. I know there are tons and tons of American citizens who are just rooting for us to lose. They just want Donald Trump to fail no matter what, let alone that a couple years ago, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were talking about how bad and awful Iran is and how they're an enemy and we need to not let them succeed. But the second Trump does anything about it, it's, oh, poor Iran, they're the good guys, we're the bad guys. They just hate everything Donald Trump does.
And I think that bleeds into the fact that they hate their own constituents. They hate Donald Trump to a point where they will gloat when he fails, even when it harms like everybody. You know what I mean? When the economy tanks in some sort of way or isn't doing as well as it could, they will gloat and be happy about that, despite the fact that that harms their own constituents, that harms Democrat voters, it harms everybody. And so it's just, it's really terrible because they will gloat and they are very happy whenever America loses, because I think a lot of it is driven by hatred of Donald Trump. They want Donald Trump to suffer, and they want that so bad that they are okay with their own people, their own side, their own constituents suffering too, which is just extremely evil. And it's something that every person who lines up with the Democratic Party on issues needs to take a good look at what they are doing. Do they really care about you? And maybe you don't align with the Republican Party. Maybe you are not conservative, but you need to take a hard look at your party and realize that as soon as it is politically valuable and good for them, they will throw you under the bus. They will celebrate at your own suffering if your own suffering coincides with Donald Trump or anyone who voted for him.
Yeah, and this is where they talk about the hierarchy of oppression. If you're a woman, you got some power, they care about you. But let's say you're a woman who's killed by an illegal immigrant, then they don't care about you at all.
Mm-hmm.
They have zero care because the illegal immigrant is at a higher oppression status than you. Now, let's say that illegal immigrant was killed by a transgender woman, black woman. Then they don't care about that illegal immigrant, then because that person's on the higher level. So whatever is politically expedient in the moment.
Well, you look at that specifically when the Democrats at the State of the Union wouldn't stand for Irina Zarutska and her family. Irina Zarutska is an immigrant. Like, she was an immigrant. She was a woman, and she wasn't killed by an illegal immigrant, but she was killed by minority, a man who had been, arrested so many times and let out of jail, but had mental health problems. And it's their person, a female immigrant who came to America for a better life. That's the sort of person that the Democrat Party loves to champion. But as soon as something bad happened to her as a result of their own policies, they will be quiet. They will not talk about it. They will not sympathize with the family there. And because, of course, the reason she died, a big part of that was because of Democratic policies, was very liberal policies. They were directly responsible for that tragedy. And so you will not hear a single thing about it from the Democratic Party.
And the thing we need to be careful about, I see it sometimes, right now we're talking about the left hating anything and everything Trump does, no matter what, and rooting for his downfall at the expense of U.S. citizens. And what we need to make sure that we don't do as conservatives is do the same thing. Because it's really easy to fall into that camp of, I don't like Joe Biden. Joe Biden's the worst. Everything he does is awful. Or any policy he enacts, you're like, man, I just can't wait for it to go bad. That is a super easy place to go, and that's why the left is there. We need to make sure that we don't do that. We're not rooting for the downfall of America, even if it's politically expedient in the moment. And actually, a lot of Republicans do this. Like actual Republican politicians, they're like, you know what? It's not bad if we let the Democrats raise taxes by 43% because the American people will hate it so much, and then they'll vote us all in, and then we can change it.
Yeah, they're okay with it because they know that they'll be proven right. And the important part in government, we cannot keep having people who are involved in the U.S. government who care more about being right than they do about people's lives. And that, I think, is one of the biggest flaws is, one, people want to win. They just want to win. But they also want to be right at the expense of other people. And the expense of other people are the people who voted for you and pay your salary. So, it's a completely messed up place to be in where you are rooting for the downfall of your nation in some sort of way. And I know people don't view it as that, right? Like when we say, Joe Biden has some tax policy and it's going to be awful and people are going to suffer because of it. And then that happens. Republicans aren't directly usually celebrating the fact that Americans are suffering. They're celebrating that they had the right idea, but
or usually they're not celebrating they're making fun of the left.
Yeah,
they're like, ha ha ha, your policy went bad.
It's more of an I told you so moment, and I think people take pleasure in that.
And you can see this, in a state like California. Everyone likes to sit around and make fun of them, and there's plenty of things to make fun of them, but genuinely, it's quite sad. The tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people whose lives have been ruined by their policies. And it's easy to sit back and be like, ha ha ha, that's so funny. But it's
not. You think of how many people who still don't have homes after the Palisades fire. That's something that there's a man right now who's actually running for mayor of LA. His name is Spencer Pratt, and he's talking about that, about how missteps from the government led to him and many other Californians losing their homes. And again, I think conservatives, we sometimes like to look at that and be like, see, look at these failed policies. Aren't they awful? And sometimes overlook
soft on crime, soft on drugs.
And we overlook the absolute tragedy that there are so many Californians who lost their homes and there nothing has been done really about it so far.
It's actually a flaw of the right, because generally speaking, we're a more logical side of the political aisle. Generally speaking, we think of things more analytically, but we don't have to. Everyone's like, oh, it's the left, they're so emotional because they do everything, these feel-good policies. If you really think about them, they aren't feel-good policies. Mm-mm. They are just bad. When you see people suffering at the expense of your policies, those are just bad. They should make you upset. The feel-good policies are the ones that make society better. You should feel good when you pass laws that are tough on crime, because your society will get better. The average person's lives will be safer and better. Those are the feel-good policies. Their policies are just lunacy. And not Democrats, Republicans do a terrible, we have the worst media presence in the world. And again, it doesn't help that the legacy media lies about us at every turn. But we do such a bad job making our case because we try to do everything super analytically.
When there is actual emotional value to what we are doing, they are, Democrats will manipulate your emotions and will make you, think that something is a feel-good policy, like you said, when it's not. But what we actually have is like a real emotional pull that is real and is valid. There's a difference, right? Because emotions can be fickle. You can be angry rightly, or you can be angry and it can be wrong. You can be totally wrong to be angry. So for me specifically, and I'm sure we'll get into more about like what do we do about this, but I think one of the biggest things that we can do is we don't have to attack Democrats like the way that they attack us, but we should be describing their policies and what they do accurately. We should be, when they have a leftist Marxist policy, we should absolutely be appalled and disgusted, and publicly so, about that, right? We see all of these clips we were saying, they keep calling us fascists and Nazis. And I think that we need to, as conservatives, be honest about the fact that being a crazy leftist, being a communist is just as bad, if not worse, and treating it as so. And that doesn't mean attacking or condoning violence like they do.
Yeah,
but
there's all sorts of emotional pleas you can make. I mean, I've been in debates with Democrats specifically on illegal immigration, and they want to bring up all the horror cases of deportations, and they're like, oh, look how awful that is. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of those examples that you use are not ideal. They're not. They kind of suck. But for every one of those, I can give you 10 of a woman who was accosted by an illegal immigrant, or a man who was murdered, or a man
or another illegal immigrant who was trafficked into the country and died because of this system,
or all the children who are human trafficked that ICE has found, the thousands and thousands of children being trafficked that ICE has found over the past year.
The exact people that they're trying to advocate, quote unquote, advocate for, are actually being harmed by the system that they promote. And you can even expound on that emotionally, because it is horrifying. It's horrifying that.
And I think John Hoeven, I think the ICE director, not John Hoeven.
No.
That's
Tom Homan.
Tom Homan. John Hoeven is a North
He's
Dakota
a North Dakota guy.
But
no, he does a really good job.
He does a really good job. I've listened to him speak live a couple times, and he always makes a really good emotional plea of he's been on the border and seen a truckload of dead people because they crossed the border illegally and they died from heat stroke because they were just abandoned there by the cartels, or the women who are trafficked and raped and violated by the cartels. And there's all sorts of emotional pleas, and they make you upset, and they should, because they're awful. So we can meet them where they are. We don't have to be the like hyper analytical 24/7. We can play both sides because we're right.
No pun intended.
No, we're right and we're right. We are right when we use an emotional argument because it's a valid one. And we are also right when we talk about things analytically. And I think that anyone who is able to do both and is able to do both well is going to be politically effective. And so I think, like you just said, conservatives need to be better and more willing to be emotional, more willing to bring up these horrible things. And I know, because sometimes we actually get accused of, like, specifically I think about how during, abortion protests, conservatives will have pictures of aborted babies. And then we get yelled at for being like using an emotional argument, trying to make people emotional. We have to do it well. We have to actually tie it in with things analytically. Like just standing outside of a Planned Parenthood with a horrible picture is not actually effective.
The only thing that's difficult about our emotional plea is they require a small amount of thinking, a little bit amount of thinking, because
which is tough for
some people because you're like, you can play the if you ask a 3-year-old what's the nice thing to do, America's a great country and there's a bunch of people who came in here illegally, what should we do? And you ask a 3-year-old, they're like, oh, we should let them stay. And that's how a 3-year-old thinks. But an adult thinks one step further and goes, well, these people are coming here, they're just going to be second-class citizens, they're taken advantage of, it's destroying the way of life for actual American citizens. We can actually do a lot more help for the world if we preserve America and just continue to do legal immigration the correct way.
Well, the adults think about how that 3-year-old's going to be treated, how it goes back to that 3-year-old, whether they are getting killed, they're getting crimes committed against them, whether their parents are getting killed, whether their parents are dying from fentanyl overdoses. Like, there's so many different trails that can go down.
And the cognitive dissonance is real here because they will at the same time talk about how America is racist. We have a fascist dictator in office. We're sexist. We're taking away people's human rights.
But
women aren't going to be able to vote, but we should let these poor people stay here. They should get to stay here. Why would we make them leave and go back to their utopian country?
Yeah. Why would the person, before the whole Venezuela thing, why shouldn't we let the Venezuelans stay here? Why would we send them back to their socialist utopia? That would be the worst thing ever. We need to keep them here in this awful, terrible country. So yes, you are correct. That is always funny.
And people who refuse to adopt an American mentality, but then are staunchly in support of staying here. It is ridiculous.
I hate your country, but I refuse to leave.
Right. And this just goes back to the fact that the Democrats, they hate America and they will say these things to win, right? They will say that America is awful because the crazy American white liberal women love it when they say things like that. And then they will also say that we should let all of these illegal immigrants stay because then, you have sympathy in different areas, and they are just trying to pull sympathy votes from every possible location that they can. And it's working. It has worked. I mean, it didn't work last election.
For the sake of potentially more leftist people listening, we'll do the disclaimer. Plenty of the illegal immigrants coming to America are generally decent people, generally fine individuals. And if they came here legally, they would generally not have been a problem for America. Yes, not every single illegal immigrant that comes here is a rapist, murderer, despite what some people...
and to be honest,
would say.
And this is something I've talked to.
But that doesn't make it okay for someone to break the law to come here.
Yeah.
Just because they're a nice person doesn't mean the law doesn't apply to them.
It's something I've talked about before, is that if I was in some of these people's position, I might have found myself doing the exact same thing if I thought that there was no way for me to enter here legally.
And I don't blame them for trying to get here, because America, even as a second-class citizen, is so much better than most of these other countries. But it's a disservice to them, and we are the problem that's encouraging all these people to make the dangerous journey to come to America illegally.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all of these things that we talk about, it really just sums up into one general principle that the left, the American left, they just hate what is good. They just hate it. They don't want good things to happen because they hate all of the things that cause the good. While I was preparing for this this podcast, writing down all the show notes, I was sitting in my chair right next to my window, and there's a field across from my apartment, and it's a nice sunny day, and I see this kid flying a kite with his mom and dad, and then some other kids come over, and they're just running around having a great time, and everyone looks so carefree. They're just enjoying the beautiful weather. It's just a beautiful little family out there in the field having fun. And I remember when I was a kid doing these sorts of things with my family, and I feel very warm and nostalgic, and I feel good and happy because I had those things in my childhood because I had a good family and a good life in America. And I just think to myself, wow, there's people who want to prevent this joy that I have in my heart from other people having it. They want to destroy nuclear families. They want to ruin our nation economically and socially and religiously. They don't want this goodness that I have, that millions of people have. They don't want people to have it. They don't want younger generations to have it. They hate it. And I don't know whether it's out of just jealousy, because some people don't get it. Some people have rough lives. They don't get to have the joy and nostalgia of a good childhood. Some people don't. And maybe they're just bitter about it and they want to take it away from other people. I don't know. But all I do know is in that moment, I'm like, these people are on the opposite of good. They're on the opposition of the good guys.
I was about to say, I have a theory of why, sort of why, not a theory. I mean, if we're looking at someone who's coming at it from a Marxist perspective, they believe you're either oppressed or you're an oppressor. Mm-hmm. So if you have an intact nuclear family, you have a normal house, like your parents own their home, they make a good living, right? You're not wealthy, whatever, but you're not oppressed, right? Because you're white and your parents are together and you have everything you need. So that you can't possibly be oppressed, then you have to be an oppressor. And if you're an oppressor, we can't allow that, basically, is the idea of the Communist Manifesto, is the Marxist idea. And there's also this feeling of guilt, right? We think of it a lot of times with like white guilt. People talk about that, of guilt that they are associated as the oppressor. They think of themselves as the oppressor. You think of a lot of these white Democrat people, they actually feel like they are evil. It's sort of a self-hatred.
I think it's because a lot of them are atheists, and they recognize they feel the weight of their sin, but they don't know what's wrong with them. Mm-hmm. So they think they'll feel better if they, do a bunch of social justice things.
But the idea is that if you're privileged enough to have two parents and be able to have a kite and have a great day and live in a house that your parents own, then there's no possible explanation except for that you are somehow the oppressor, even though you're just a little kid who's done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And whatever. And so we have to dismantle that. And again, that's the idea of the Communist Manifesto, is these people, when they preach equality and equity and all of this, they're not trying to make us all equally prosperous. They want us all to be equally miserable.
It does. I mean, yes, it does say in the Communist Manifesto that their goal is not to alleviate poverty, but to make it ubiquitous. They want everyone to be poor, because if you're all poor, then you can't oppress each other. So everyone's equally broke. Then there's no way you can gang up on someone, which is just a lunacy idea. Mm-hmm. But
which is a reason why, if you have that point of view, you cannot love America. You cannot appreciate it, because we have this idea of the American dream. Anyone can do anything as long as they're willing to try and willing to fail. You have the opportunity to, become richer than anyone else in history, or the opportunity to fail miserably. But you have the freedom to do it. And if you believe these Marxist ideologies, you cannot possibly love America, because our core identity is antithetical to those.
Yeah. And the point that I was trying to get to was, like, that goodness that I had, people hate that. They intrinsically just desire for it to not exist. And what I would say is that good things can happen from evil intentions. And this is how the Lord oftentimes makes fools of his enemies. So he'll take their bad actions and make good things come from them. But evil intentions cannot exist with good ones. You can't be evil in one aspect, like your desires for life is evil in some aspects and then good in the other. And it says this in Matthew 6:24, no one can serve two masters. You either hate one or love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve, and in this context, both God and money. But the concept is still ubiquitous. You cannot serve both good and evil. There's not this like dividing line. You are in opposition of good, or you're not. Mm-hmm. And in that, I get a little bit more understanding that why all of their policies end up being awful, whether they want them to be or not, is because they, for lack of a better term, and I mean this in the most definitional, biblical, religious way possible, they are evil people, separated from God. That's what an evil person is. You are antithesis to the Lord. That is definitionally what the word evil means. We still love them, but it is what evil means. They have evil intentions. They want evil things to happen. And even when they try to do good things, in their mind, they are still evil things. And for example, if I sit here and proclaim the goodness of the Lord, but I'm doing it with the intentions of for myself to be exalted and to get a bunch of social media fame. And then, God's being exalted as a side piece. I'm still a bad person. I'm not a good person because I'm saying good things for bad reasons.
Or because good resulted from what you did doesn't make you good.
Exactly. I had bad intentions.
It just exemplifies the goodness of God.
Yeah, I had bad intentions, and even if good things happen, I'm still a bad person. Likewise, you can't sit and say, I hate everything that God likes, whether it be his church or marriage or families, and then also say that I want to help my fellow man. I want to help the people around me, because you are actively doing things that are going to negatively impact them, that are going to ruin their lives. There's only one of two options. You are either a fool or a liar. And I say fool, again, in the most religious sense. You have been duped into believing that good is evil and evil is good.
Mm-hmm.
That, or you're just lying to yourself. But again, the left at large, it just hates what is intrinsically good. So now we've sort of established that, yes, the left does in fact hate us. I know it took a while for us to prove it, but the next big question is why do they hate us so much? And we kind of touched on this a little bit. One of the aspects that we didn't talk about that I think is quite interesting is one of the biggest lies that has ever been perpetrated upon our society. It is that hating something or someone is the worst thing you can do. Hate, definitionally, means hate is an intense, deep-seated emotion characterized by extreme dislike, animosity, or revulsion, often accompanied by anger and contempt. Hatred is just an emotion, yet it seems to be the worst thing you can possibly do. Example A being everyone being like, it was okay that Charlie Kirk was killed because he was a hateful person. But is hating the absolute worst thing you can do? Well, I think the obvious answer is no. For example, God hates things. In Psalms 11:5, it says, "The Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked who love violence, he hates with a passion." Or Proverbs, "The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate." This is the Lord talking through the scriptures that there are in fact things he hates, things that he has great dislike, animosity, or revulsion to. I know we have this common culture of love everyone and love everything they do all the time, but it is proper to hate things. Mm-hmm. You are to dislike strongly and have immense dislike towards certain things or things that people do. But the left tries to tell us all that the worst thing that the right could ever do is that we hate everyone, which the funny thing is that we don't.
Mm-hmm. They've redefined hate in a lot of ways too, where it's like even slightly like not being okay with something happening or not being okay with someone doing something to you means that you hate that person. Like they've redefined it as well.
It's the paradox of hyper-intolerance. As a society, you become so intolerant. So hyper-tolerance. Mm-hmm. As a society, you become so tolerant that the idea that someone could be intolerant, you are intolerant of.
Well, it's the idea of, right, like we've gotten, like feminism happened, women got their own spaces, that sort of thing. And then the trans movement happened and we have to tolerate these people. And so you become so tolerant of the transgender population that you allowed them to invade and usurp female spaces, and you have become so tolerant that you are now intolerant of a whole new group. Mm-hmm. You are now actually creating harm
because
upon
certain
another
things
group.
Are in antithesis to each other. So
we shouldn't tolerate certain things.
You can't love one and not hate the other intrinsically. And I would generally say hate is not the goal of anyone. That's not the destination that we desire. But even if we conceded that all instances of hate are bad, all of them are bad, there's obviously worse things you can do. I would rather have someone hate ICE agents and not do anything about it. They just hate them, than for someone to kill ICE agents because they love illegal immigrants. They don't hate ICE agents. They just love illegal immigrants. Obviously, the murder is worse than the emotion. It is far worse to do things that are evil than to feel things that are evil. But very obviously, the left doesn't actually care about hate because they do it all the time. As we described earlier, they hate all of us with such a burning passion. The hypocrisy of, I'm going to hate you because you're a hateful person.
The only thing stronger than hate is love, that's been their new slogan, the lefties. And it's like, well, that's crazy coming from the most hateful group I've ever met. But yeah, I would say that I don't care if someone hates me as long as they leave me alone. You can hate me all day. Don't talk about me behind my back. I mean, actually, I don't even care about that. But like, don't slander me. Don't talk to me. Don't be violent towards me.
Adversely affecting my life, I don't actually care that much.
If you hate me, like I really don't. And also, they've started to equate hate to violence, right? They describe someone as hateful and then say that they deserve violence because somehow that hate was equal.
Well, that's where you saw with Charlie Kirk when he died. People were like, oh, it was okay because his hateful speech caused harm to other people.
I had someone come up to me and actually tell me that his rhetoric, his hateful rhetoric, led to the deaths of countless individuals. And
I'd love to see a peer-reviewed study.
I was like, can you tell me one?
The whole like dog whistle myth that they always perpetrate on conservative media, that the things that we say are encoded to have the deep-seated, there's all these racists hiding in the woods, and they're just waiting for the dog whistle. They're just waiting for someone to say illegal immigrants shouldn't be, allowed to just live freely in the country. They should be deported. And then they're going to come out and take control of society. When actuality, there's no one. There's no one out there who's waiting for this dog whistle. The dog whistle doesn't exist. You're just reading into something because you have this insane idea that this person is evil, so therefore everything they say must also be evil in some way, shape, or form. But yes, as the left has shown us, hating someone is not the worst thing you can do. Again, with the paradox of the hyper-tolerant society, same thing with the hating people. So hating someone or something is not awful all of the time. The left has decided that. So why would you hate something or someone? Well, there's justified reasons if something is really, really bad. Well, what makes something really, really bad? If it hurts people, that's what makes it really, really bad. So to convince someone that something is really bad, you need to do one of two things, or you need to have both things. You need to have a thing, an action that is bad, and then convince them that this person is doing it. So they need to convince the left, the leftist news tries to convince everyone that the right is doing something that is bad. So examples of this is not letting kids transition. Yes, we don't want kids to transition, but no, that is not bad. So all they need to do is convince everyone that it is bad. And that's where they lie. They say, this is awful. This is necessary medical procedure, that kids will be killing themselves en masse if we don't let them mutilate their genitals. This is just not true. So the lie is that the thing that we are doing is bad, but it's not bad.
And I think that also a lot of times leftists like to twist hatred of things and hatred of systems into hatred of people. So the hatred of abortion. We hate the idea that there are people being killed within the womb, and they twist that to conservatives hate women. We hate the idea of children's genitals being mutilated in gender transitions, which is then twisted to we hate trans people.
It's like, no, it's because I love them.
The most prominent example of this was when Michael Knowles had a speech where he talked about he wants to eliminate transgenderism.
Eradicate transgenderism
from public life. So he says that this should just not be something that we do anymore. We shouldn't be transing anybody. This shouldn't be something that's acceptable. It's not backed by science. It's pseudo-spiritual. We shouldn't be doing that. And then legitimately, I never saw a leftist actually take what he said and dissect it for what it was. Instead, they just said, you hate trans people and you want to eradicate them. And so, or like, again, hatred of like the immigration system, the way we are just letting people in, is then twisted to you hate immigrants and you're racist. And that's not true.
So very commonly, that is, I would say, the most common strategy that the left does is, like our examples, saying that the thing that we want to do is really, really evil and bad. That's their favorite thing to do. The next thing you can do is take something that is bad and then lie and say that they are doing it. For example, the thing that the left likes to talk about is that white people are oppressing minorities. That would be a bad thing. That is a bad thing, but we're not doing it. That isn't happening. That one's harder to do because it's harder to prove something is happening when it's not happening. It's a little easier to convince people that a thing that they are doing is bad. So,
and they've also made it just, they've turned everything into racism, right? We have this whole idea of like a microaggression, right? If an aggression has to be categorized as micro, you're probably just seeing things where they aren't existing, right? And it's, again, a confirmation bias where if you say, oh my goodness, these conservatives, they're so racist, look at all the racist things you do, then you start to look at the things that conservatives do and think, is that racist? Is it not racist? It's probably racist because we've been told that they are racist. And there's a confirmation bias there as well.
yeah, because you assume your opposition is evil. Everything they do is going to be seen as evil. I dare you to try that with someone you care about. Say, you know what, I think they're a bad person and everything they do is for bad intentions. I promise you, you'll be able to find all of their negative and terrible aspects of their character. You'll be like, they didn't empty the dishwasher because they hate me, when they just forgot or they were busy.
I've seen literal, like, so I'm chronically online, so I see a lot of this discourse. But there was this one video, and it was this woman, it was an African-American woman, and she was carrying some flowers, and then there was this group of white women who were like, oh my goodness, you look like, they complimented her dress. And then they were like, asked where they could get flowers, because apparently there were free flowers. And the lady was like, oh, they're done giving out flowers, the black lady said to the white women. And they were all like, aw. And then she, like, later makes a video about that and is like, that was a microaggression because they thought because they were white that they deserved flowers.
Yeah.
And like this sort of thing where you were
reading
like,
into their
where it was
actions.
literally just a group of women being super nice to you and then being like, oh my goodness, there's free flowers, we would like some. Like, it was the most innocent and actually kind interaction that could have been. And she had to figure out some way, because it was a group of white women, to make it racist.
So, yeah. And again, so
that's just an example, and that was a chronically online. Like, you usually won't see that in real life.
So yes, they either assign you false motives or assign you false actions, or they do both, like we were talking about earlier, where they try to convince everyone that the right is super hateful, which we're not, and that being super hateful could be the worst thing anyone could ever do.
Which it's not.
Which it's not. So those ones are the funniest when you see, and honestly, sometimes the hardest ones to argue. I like to use this saying that the left, oftentimes, they're wrong and they're wrong. The premise of their statements are wrong, but even if they were correct, they would still be wrong. So they are wrong that we are hateful. We're not. But even if we were, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But all that to be said, this has been a loosely coordinated effort amongst various media outlets and media and educational departments to convince society that we do evil things that we don't do, and that the good things we do are somehow bad, and that they are somehow better than us, despite doing the exact same, doing the things that they accuse us of doing. And to show this, I would like, Mr. Titus, would you play us video 3?
Yep.
I believe he's been falsely called racist.
You're kidding, right?
I'm Don Lemon. The President of the United States is racist.
He is a tried and true, dyed-in-the-wool racist.
I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist.
What Trump has always been was a rich, malevolent, really racist man.
We now have a president of the United States who is a racist.
Do you believe President Trump is a racist?
Yeah. No, for
question. Donald Trump, what's it say?
I think he's a racist.
He is a racist.
The president is a racist.
Racist.
Racist. Racist. Racist. Racist.
Racist.
I am the least racist person you've ever met.
Yeah. So, a montage of the media calling Trump a vicious racist. We've all seen this. We all know it to be true. They're the one calling Donald Trump a racist. But I ask you, which party is demanding that the courts, or is upset that the courts overturned racially enforced districting? That was the left. Which political party is currently advocating, in some instances, to racially segregate colleges, whether it be their graduation ceremonies or dorms? That's the left. Which group pushes critical race theory? That is the left. Which group is saying that minorities can't figure out how to get to the DMV and find how to get their IDs? Also the left. But we're the bad guys. We are the party of racism, even though we're the party of anti-racism. We've always been the party of pro-civil rights for minorities. We always have been. That's because we're Christians, and Christianity preaches it has no basis for racial segregation, no basis for any racism whatsoever. God loves all people equally. To revere someone as less than because of their race is abhorrent to God. But they call Donald Trump a man for decades who is praised for his equitable actions towards minorities and his generous giving to various minority foundations, a prominent liberal for decades, loved by everyone. They can somehow call that man a vicious racist 24/7. So they have no coherence. They don't care about being logically consistent. They're willing to lie to you about the things that they do. They're going to say Donald Trump is bad because he's a racist when they are the racists.
When they are also, this is another one too. I mean, I think we're talking. They are also the party that continually keeps talking about why we should keep illegal immigrants here. And the reason is because they want them to work the jobs.
Who's going to pick the strawberries?
Yeah, who's going to pick that is one of the most, I think, poignant examples of current day racism from the left is that they have literally been talking about that. There was a farmer in Idaho who's complaining about how she just cannot find anyone to work for the same wage that the illegal immigrants were working. And this is a very common sentiment among
But unless
leftists.
I have slave labor, how can I afford to grow strawberries and blueberries?
And it is the equivalent of slave labor because, yes, you are maybe paying these people, right? I think I talked to you about this a different time. Okay, so during slavery, obviously, masters would house and feed their slaves, right? But they weren't paying them a wage. Now you can't do that. You can't just have someone work on your farm and then let them sleep.
Sometimes they actually do
Yes,
that.
But legally, you're not. It's just you shouldn't do that. And so instead, we're giving them money. We're giving them minimum wage. Not we. I would never be. Can't find me doing something like that. Sorry, that's a leftist thing. But that's what they're doing. They're literally the party of exploiting people who are of a different race. And I think that is just, I don't know.
Yeah. And the reason why they do all these things, they lie about us and themselves, is because the goal of the leftists, communists, whatever you want to call them, is to win. They honestly don't have any other real social values outside of that. They just want to win. They fundamentally don't have any ethics. And this is where you see Nancy Pelosi back in February of 2020 talking about how stupid Donald Trump is for trying to close down travel from different countries, different Asian countries. And he's like, she says, he's just a xenophobe. He just hates these immigrants. He doesn't want people to come in. This is not because of COVID. COVID's not that bad. But then 3 months later, when everything is on lockdown, she'll go out on national television and say, I was saying from the beginning that we needed to close things down. I was saying from the beginning that we needed to do more. Trump wouldn't listen to me. When we have her on record earlier saying the exact opposite.
The idea is that a lot of them, they say exactly what is the most convenient for them at the time at which it is convenient, and then will change. And the thing is that we all need to be vigilant, especially people who support this party. There are normal-ish people who,
There's plenty of people who've just been duped.
Or normal Democrats who are a little bit more socially progressive. They're a little bit, I don't know, like there are somewhat normal Democrats who I just urge people to pay attention to this, right? Because this is just a mark of a bunch of people who think that you are too stupid to realize what they're doing.
Or another example, Eric Swalwell. Big Me Too guy. He was one of the biggest advocates for crucifying Brett Kavanaugh for the absolute hoax of his sexual crimes. But then it comes out of all of his sexual crimes, all of his inappropriate actions and sexual assault. The media wanting Trump dead, profusely talking about it, but being like, we don't believe in political violence. January 6th, worst thing ever. Oh, by the way, can someone please go kill the president? That's what they will say, but then also preach, oh, political violence is the worst thing ever. They're completely willing to contradict themselves.
In contrast, almost every regular conservative person you ever meet would say that, yeah, January 6th was awful, right? Like, we hate political violence, and we don't like what happened then. Like, almost every single normal person will admit that, even though it's their own
I
sign.
have seen, to the credit of, like, there's been some overcorrect from certain conservatives with the January 6th of being like, they were true American patriots, the best among us, because, like, the media slanders them so hard.
But
they take the opposite.
People.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about these online personalities where at this point, if you're online personality, you're a slave to the algorithm, so you have to take an extreme stance one way or the other. But the average normal person who just voted for Trump, a lot of them heard about that happening and were like, "Oh my word, this is just."
I mean, for me,
great.
I was just like, "Oh my goodness, this is so stupid." Like, obviously, I was like, everyone there, at least from my initial understanding.
Yeah, no one there was like, actually, we don't need to talk about January
we don't
6th.
need to talk, but from my understanding, it's like, oh man, I really wish this didn't happen. I wish those people didn't do that.
My point is
Any
that
criminal charges that should be held against, that are able to be held against them, go ahead, whatever.
My point is that we are, I would
Consistent.
say, more consistent. That was the main point of that.
Sorry, I'm not trying to open that can of worms.
No.
But yes, the left at large, the reason why they do these things, the reason why they hate us so much is because their entire goal is to win. That's it. Nothing else. And that's where if you look at the social media for the Democrat Party, it is nothing but Republican slander. It is nothing but, hey, look at Trump. He has a rash. He's probably unhealthy. And then people in the comments saying, I hope he dies. I hope he dies. Or saying, look how high gas prices are, let alone that they were higher 2-3 years ago under Joe Biden. Oh, look how awful this is. Look how bad this is. Everything that the Republicans are doing is awful and terrible. I haven't looked into it deeply, but I saw one of their more recent ones talking about, was it Oklahoma having legislation to ban marriage for individuals under 18? And they're like, look at these Republicans who didn't vote for it, let alone that it was a Republican who headed up the bill, who presented it legislatively. It was a Republican who was pushing it. It was also sponsored by some Democrats as well. It was a bipartisan. It was a bipartisan bill at large, but this idea, they tried to infer that it was all these Republicans, the Republican Party hated this thing, when it was just not true. All they care about is just whatever's politically expedient in the moment. And that what causes them to lie and slander us and then hate us because, again, we are their main opposition from winning. And if all you care about is winning, you're going to hate the people you're playing against.
And also you have, I would say in a lot of instances, have a worse chance at winning. Like I look at Kamala Harris's platform, and for a long time, she had, like, Trump had his, his just goals and his policies and all the things. He had a website up forever. And I remember waiting and waiting for Kamala's, like, policies to drop. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like a new merch drop and you're just waiting for it and it's just not coming. But anyway, and a majority of her platform was just like, oh my goodness, guys, you don't want to elect Donald Trump. He's a racist.
Or every single person who's running under the Democrat ticket, for whether it be, some places not Democrat, they're nonpartisan positions, but they're running as a liberal leftist. But all the ones that are running as Democrat, it's just I hate Trump more than the other candidate. During their Democrat primaries, it's I hate Trump more than this candidate. And the other one's like, no, I hate Trump more than you do. And the other one goes, actually, I hate Trump more than all of you. There's no plea
And if that's
for
your
policy.
strategy, you absolutely deserve to lose. And I think if the Republicans started doing it in the same way that the Democrats are, they would also deserve to lose.
It shows you actually how hateful the party is.
Mhm.
Because if that's what you believe will win you the most amount of votes in a primary, then you are playing off the idea that your entire constituency is just filled with people that care about nothing but hating Donald Trump.
And there is some validity to that. Like I just saw there was like a podcast clip on TikTok, and it was from the mayor, one of the people running for mayor in Fargo, and she was saying how she voted for Trump. And there's so many comments being like, okay, well now I instantly know not to vote for you.
Yeah, and to be fair, there are Republican candidates who play the I voted for Donald Trump, I'm a Donald Trump supporter. They do that as well. But that, generally speaking, is a plea to Donald Trump's policies, not out of I love this person so much because I love him, you should vote for me. Where in the reverse, the Democrats, it's I just hate this person. There's no policy. It's just I hate this person so much. So that is why they hate us so much, because the only thing they care about is winning, and we are the only object in the way of their desired goal. So we've established that the left hates us and why they hate us, but then the only real question is, what do we do from here? And as the way I see it, I believe we have generally two options. We can either rise to their levels of animosity, or we can, in a manner of speaking, sort of take the high road. Now, the first option a lot of times feels fun, feels like the best thing to do. When somebody pushes you, push them back just as hard in the exact same way. We will lose that fight. If we go down into the bowels of I hate you more than you hate me, we will lose. Why? Because our ideas are predicated off good. And good ideas do not prosper through evil actions or bad actions. They don't. So everyone on the media and in the schools, they're against us. They say how awful we are. And all we will do by lowering ourselves to the level of the left is prove them right. And no one will ever want to join our side, because they'll rightfully so, in some instances, view us as the bad guys. So that leaves us with one other option. It's to take, again, sort of the high road. And what I mean by sort of the high road is, I mean, a lot of times Republicans and conservatives say, oh, we need to take the high road. And that just means we need to lose. Like, they just like, oh, we're just going to give up. Like, the left is pushing us and they're being super mean and awful. We're going to take the high road and just do nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong. But what I mean is you fight back, but in the right ways, the hard ways, the difficult ways. The only benefit we have on our side is God. Everywhere else, it's an uphill battle. But luckily, the most important thing is God, so we'll win. We're going to have to put in some real effort. Example of this is fixing schools. Fixing schools is going to be a big challenge, because for decades they've been infiltrated by the lefty commies, and the curriculum is awful, and it teaches terrible negative things about America and our society and who we are as people. We're going to have to take it back. Luckily, we have some help with Donald Trump getting rid of the Department of Education. We need to more localize schools and allow parents to decide what their kids learn. Because generally speaking, everyone is far more conservative than they let on, or that they think they are. And they will teach their kids roughly good things. They will generally teach their kids helpful and useful things. So as society, as individuals, we need to take back our school systems. That, I would say, is probably the most important thing we can do.
Right. And if that seems like, I understand that some people hear that and they think of that as like kind of scary or kind of daunting. And I guess the thing that I would just ask is, like, are you okay with the government being in charge of your child's education? Do you trust the government? Like, in which ways do you not trust the government? And I think we all, right, left, center, can say that there are many ways that we don't trust them. So why on earth would we give them the responsibility of molding and teaching and creating human beings, like solid members of society? I don't trust them in a lot of instances and in a lot of ways. And so the most precious members of our society, which are our children, should not be put in the hands of any government. And I don't care if it's Donald Trump's government or if it's Joe Biden's. I don't think that we can trust an entity that large and that could benefit that much from indoctrinating children, right? And so I think that I've heard a lot of people be really upset. They're upset by the loss of jobs. They think it's really scary. They're afraid that, states, poorer states are going to suffer. And we will cross those roads when we get to them. But I think that the most important thing to realize is that the government should not be the federal government should not have a huge amount of authority over your children and what they're learning and what they're consuming.
Another aspect, another very important thing is homes, fixing homes. You need to get married and have kids. You need to have healthy relationships with the people around you. This is very important both for continuing the legacy of our society through procreation and both just generally fostering goodwill. Having a family makes you sane. You have stake in the society. You have hope in the future, and you have a desire to make things better because things that matter to you most, your kids, will be here after you're gone. So you can't just leave them a crappy society. You don't want to leave them a crappy society. So getting married and having kids is one of the best things you can do to motivate yourself to get involved. And another aspect of that is get off the internet. Dear God.
Unless you're watching our show.
Yeah, and
then you can stay for a little bit.
Get off the internet. The human mind was not made to spend this many hours distracted. Our society, we have a death of distraction. You read it in many theology books. A Western society is death of distractions. You need time to cope with your existence, and you need time to make you sane. A lot of people are super, super stressed out and anxious about the world around them. I would say the most obvious example of this are the world is ending climate people. They're terrified because all they do is they look at the news 24/7 talking about how climate change is going to destroy the world. But if you just turned your phone off, your TV off, whatever you're watching it on, and just go outside, you're like, wow, it's a beautiful day out. I think I'm going to go for a walk. And we spend so much time dwelling on the bad things of this world. And there are tons and tons of awful things, but things that you can do nothing about, you as an individual, because it's too far away, or there's far more important things for you to worry about, or that you actually can deal with. There's unnecessary stress. You have no ability to affect the Iranian war currently. No ability. So why are you going to sit here and just anxiety yourself to death? Get off the internet, get a life, go hang out with some friends, go play a game, go for a walk, read a book. You need to...
Even going to the bar is better at this point. People used to go to the bars and hang out with their friends, right?
As much as I'm against drinking, that would be better.
That's better. It's still better.
You need to, it makes you sane to get off the internet, spend some time. And honestly, a lot of times people are just afraid to. They're on the internet because they want to be distracted because there are things in their lives that bother them. They don't want to have to deal with. And as soon as they're not distracted, they have the bad thoughts, the things they don't like about themselves. But those only go away if you deal with them. And people try to pretend that they don't have those problems, or they just push them to the corner. And then the second they're not distracted, it hurts them again. You can't live that life. It's a life of fear. You need to set the phone down, deal with your problems, and then you'll be a much happier and fulfilled person. You won't be one of these depressed, middle-aged cat moms going to protests every freaking Thursday and Friday, and you're like, how do you have a job? And they're protesting everything under the sun, whether it be abortion or euthanizing pets who are crippled. They protest everything. There's not a cause they haven't found that they would be willing to protest. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this just stems from what things would be good for a Christian to do to evangelize. And one of the best ways to evangelize is to just follow God diligently and receive the gifts that he has for you. Because by receiving the gifts that he has for you, people will see that and say, I want that. So the joy, the peace, the kindness, the gentleness, the faithfulness that you receive from a relationship with Jesus Christ, people look at you and go, that person is different. I want to be like that person. Same with being a conservative. At large, one of the best ways you can evangelize our principles is by living a good and fruitful life, being happy, appreciating the life around you, while also getting involved in specifically local politics. People who are crazy and depressed and blue-haired and want to chop their body parts off, they will look at that, and some percentage of them will see that and be like, you know what? All the people who have this are really happy, and all the people like me are super, super sad and depressed. Maybe I should give up this and go to that. And that's what we can hope for more than anything, to try to convert people from this cause of lunacy and societal suicide to the side of prosperity and goodness. Mm-hmm. So yes, it is an uphill battle. We don't have a lot going for us. It is easier to fall to evil and darkness than to goodness and righteous qualities. The only thing that we have for us is that we're right, is that we are correct, that God is on our side. That's the only thing we have. But luckily, it's the only thing we need. So as long as we are faithful and we follow what God has for each of our lives, God will put us in the situations to fix the little piece of our society that he wants us to fix. He will enable us to do that. You don't have to fix everything. Just a little piece of your neighbors, and go help at your school and your local elections. Just worry about that. And the big problems will take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. So, unless any of my compadres have anything to say.
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Nailed it. Sounds good, boss. Mm-hmm. I like it.
So, get off your phone. Go outside. Read your Bible. Praise God. Thank you. That is another episode of Freedom First with Hayden Smith. We will see you next time.